So last night, Justin Larson revealed a new FrostSpark card on his Twitch stream, and if you have not heard, it is a new orc for Endurance. The card is Karthspire Scout. It is a 1-drop, 1-cost 1/1, that has Last Gasp, draw a card, increase its cost by 1. This is a very, very interesting card. It is immediately the sort of thing that I feel like has a home in Petamax's Abomination list, because Last Gasp, draw a card and a 1-drop feels really strong. The drawback that is associated with it, of that card being 1 additional cost to play, probably not a big deal. You're typically trying to combo when you have 2 Thieves Guild fences on the board anyway, and if you have that, making most of your stuff that costs 0 or 1 cost 2, not that big of a deal. It really only hurts you when you draw a 2-drop that you want to then play for free, but now because of the increase, but your reductions from Thieves Guild now costs 1. But again, that's not that huge of a deal, but potential drawback. Now, this card might have additional applications. I could see this running in Telvanni lists, for example, as yet another way to draw cards. If you're playing a control deck, the 1-cost increase that late in the game, not that big of a deal, but you know, if you're playing Telvanni, for example, and you get your Thieves Guild Recruit and you get your Slime Marshblades, and maybe you run Elusive Schemer, maybe you don't, but that could draw you a card. If you've already played Unglum, then you're going to find Assassins, right? You probably are drawing somewhere between like 1 and 3 to 4 cards already with that list. This would make it so that you get something with Last Gasp on the board, thus making it potentially 5 cards, so you're really going heavy on the reload resources in that scenario. Not likely. I don't think it fits there, but might be worth experimenting. I could also see an argument made for this being played in Orcs. Orc Warrior traditionally doesn't have a ton of card draw. It's got a little bit better. I've seen Orc Warriors running the Ash Berserker for obvious reasons, but this is an Orc, and it draws cards, and honestly, a 1-drop Orc is great potential synergy because it's that much cheaper if you need to pair something with Wood Orc Headhunter. It's that much cheaper if you need to pair it with the Stone Shard Orc, for example. And when I say cheaper, I mean playing this card and the other card as if you're trying to activate it, right? So obviously the card you draw from this, a little bit more expensive, but Orcs typically top out at around 5 or 6 Magicka as far as their curve anyway, so the longer the game goes, the less this draw card drawback really matters. The thing that hurts it in an Orc deck is obviously the 1/1 stats. That's less than ideal, but again, it helps your Orc count, so I think this card is good enough to experiment with. I'll put it that way. I don't know if it's going to end up finding a long-term home. This is going to largely depend on how the metagame evolves, because while I do think it has a home in Petamax's Abomination, I would certainly try playing it there, for example. That deck may still be a thing, or it may fade, depending on the other cards that are revealed with FrostSpark, and then especially when Isle of Madness comes out. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a meta-dependent call. I think this is going to potentially need some help, but it's at least good enough to consider running. And for a 1-drop, that's actually really good news. There are not a lot of 1-drops in the game where you say, like, yeah, I would consider running this. And even just saying, like, I might put it in decks, that's kind of a win for 1-drops in my mind. It's certainly a win for Orcs, so I want to know, you know, how you guys feel. Do you think that the 1/1 body is too much of a drawback? Do you think that the cost increase on the card that you draw is too much of a drawback? I think that the 1/1 body actually hurts this more than the cost increase on the Last Gasp, if I'm being entirely honest. I think if this was a 2/1, I would hard play this in most Orc decks. I would be even far more excited if it was, you know, I'll say like a 1/2, because it would carry a Steel Scimitar very nicely at that point, jumping out to a 3/4 and surviving trades with 2-drops that were 3/2s. But at a 1/1, much harder to get long-term value out of it. But again, Last Gasp, draw a card, not exactly terrible. So I want to know what you think. Let me know if I'm way off base. Do you think this is flat unplayable? Do you think that it's much better than I'm giving it credit for. I want to know. As always, thanks for watching. Until next time, may you walk on warm sands.